10 plants for stress and depression. What science actually proves. Ancient wisdom and modern clinical research. We live in an age where stress has become a norm. Chronic exhaustion, anxiety, low mood, insomnia. These words are familiar to most of us. The pharmaceutical industry offers its answers. But long before pharmacies existed, people found help where they always had, in nature. Let me be honest with you from the very first lines. This text is not about miracles, and it is not a substitute for your doctor. The plants discussed here have been studied in clinical trials. Where the evidence is strong, I will say so clearly. Where the data is limited or conflicting, I will say that too. Because your health matters more than a beautiful story. What stress does to your brain. Before we talk about plants, it helps to understand the mechanism. When you experience stress, your body releases cortisol, the primary stress hormone. In the short term, this is useful. It mobilizes your resources. But with chronic stress, persistently elevated cortisol damages nerve cells, suppresses the production of serotonin and dopamine, disrupts sleep, and weakens the immune system. Most of the plants on this list act directly on these mechanisms. And this is precisely what laboratories measure. Cortisol levels in the blood, anxiety scores on standardized scales, sleep quality. Plant 1. Ashwagandha, Withania somnifera. If there is one plant studied more thoroughly than any other for stress, it is ashwagandha. Ayurvedic medicine has used it for millennia. Modern science decided to put it to the test. A 2024 to 2025 meta-analysis of 15 randomized controlled trials involving 873 patients found that ashwagandha significantly reduced anxiety on the HAM-A scale, lowered perceived stress on the PSS scale, and measurably decreased serum cortisol levels. PubMed Central. What is especially compelling is the mechanism. Ashwagandha lowers circulating cortisol by modulating the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the body's primary stress response system. It has also been proposed to exert GABAergic and serotonergic effects, making it a potential therapeutic option for sleep disorders, anxiety, and depression. PubMed Central. One honest caveat. Most studies ran for 8 to 12 weeks. Long-term safety data remains limited. High doses can cause stomach upset in some people. How to use. Standardized root extract, 300 to 600 milligrams per day. Widely available in capsule form. Plant 2. St. John's Wort, Hypericum perforatum. This is arguably the most extensively researched plant in the history of depression trials. A meta-analysis of 29 clinical trials involving 5,489 patients found that St. John's Wort extracts are superior to placebo and equally effective as standard antidepressants for mild to moderate depression, while patients discontinued treatment due to side effects significantly less often compared to those taking SSRIs. PubMed. The mechanism is well understood. Its two main active constituents, hyperforin and hypricin, have demonstrated therapeutic effects on various mood disorders. For patients with mild to moderate depression, St. John's Wort shows comparable efficacy and safety to SSRI class drugs. PubMed Central. A critical warning that cannot be skipped. Combining St. John's Wort with certain antidepressants can lead to a potentially life-threatening increase in brain serotonin levels, known as serotonin syndrome. Symptoms may include agitation, rapid heart rate, elevated body temperature, and high blood pressure. St. John's Wort also interacts with many medications, blood thinners, oral contraceptives, HIV medications. Never combine it with other drugs without consulting your doctor first. The evidence also only applies to mild and moderate depression. For severe depression, the data does not support its use. How to use. Standardized extract, 300 milligrams 3 times per day. Only after consulting a physician, especially if you take other medications. Plant 3. Lavender, Lavender angustifolia. The scent of lavender is not just a pleasant fragrance. There is real biochemistry behind it. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, officially recognizes lavender as a medicinal plant for relieving symptoms of mental stress and exhaustion, and for aiding sleep. Wiley Online Library. The oil-based lavender preparation, known as silexin, has been particularly well studied. It has shown a significant anxiolytic effect in clinical trials, with additional potential benefit for depression and insomnia, and was well tolerated compared to control interventions. Science Direct. Clinical trials support its efficacy in treating generalized anxiety disorder compared to placebo, and it improves sleep quality in insomnia studies. However, the overall evidence base is limited in quality. Most studies had small sample sizes and insufficient placebo controls. PubMed Central. How to use essential oil for aromatherapy, a diffuser or a few drops on your pillow, dried flower tea. The most studied form is the standardized capsule preparation silexin, 80 milligrams per day. Plant 4. Lemon Balm, Melissa officinalis. Easy to grow on a windowsill, widely available, and far more underappreciated than it deserves to be. Lemon balm has consistently shown efficacy in clinical trials for relieving mild anxiety and stress. PubMed, the European Medicines Agency, has recognized lemon balm leaf as an approved treatment for mental stress and associated sleep disturbances. Wiley Online Library. The mechanism is well understood. Active compounds in lemon balm inhibit the enzyme that breaks down GABA, the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. This produces a calming effect without significant drowsiness. How to use tea from fresh or dried leaves. 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup of boiling water, steep for 10 minutes. Can also be used fresh in food as an herb. Safe for regular daily use. Plant 5. Passionflower, Passiflora incarnata. A native of the southeastern United States, long cherished by traditional herbalists for its calming properties, and now backed by clinical evidence. A 2022 systematic review concluded that passionflower is an effective method for treating stress reactivity, anxiety, and insomnia. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration lists it as a safe herbal sedative, and none of the available monographs on the plant mention toxicity or contraindications. PubMed Central. Passionflower provides sedative effects comparable to oxazepam or midazolam, and appears to be a safe and effective option for reducing stress reactivity, improving sleep, and alleviating anxiety. However, since its precise mechanism of action on the central nervous system has not been fully established, caution is advised when using it alongside other CNS depressants. PubMed Central. How to use tea from dried flowers and leaves, steep 15 minutes, tincture, or capsules. Works particularly well for anxiety accompanied by sleep difficulties. Plant 6. Valerian, Valeriana officinalis. One of the most studied plants for sleep and anxiety. Ancient Greeks used its root. Modern science has largely confirmed why. The European Medicines Agency officially recognizes valerian root as a treatment with demonstrated efficacy for mental stress and sleep disorders. Some herbal preparations for psychiatric conditions, including valerian, have consistent clinical evidence confirmed by meta-analyses. Wiley Online Library. Valerian has consistently shown in clinical trials that it can relieve mild anxiety disorders, particularly those involving sleep disturbances. PubMed. One honest note: some individual studies are methodologically weak. Valerian tends to work better with regular use over several weeks rather than as a single dose. How to use root decoction or standardized capsules, 400 to 600 milligrams, taken 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Do not combine with alcohol or other sedative medications. Plant 7. Saffron, Crocus sativus. The world's most expensive spice and one of the most promising natural antidepressants currently under investigation. Clinical trials have found that saffron stigma is significantly more effective than placebo and equally as efficacious as fluoxetine and imipramine, standard antidepressant medications. Saffron petals similarly showed superiority over placebo and comparable efficacy to fluoxetine. PubMed. Among the most studied botanicals, 6 or more randomized controlled trials each, saffron produced benefits comparable to standard anxiolytics and antidepressants, with a favorable risk-benefit profile. PubMed Central. Important caveat: most saffron studies have small sample sizes. The findings are genuinely encouraging, but larger trials are still needed. At very high doses, saffron can be toxic, but this refers to quantities dozens of times greater than any culinary or supplement use. How to use? Add it to food when cooking. Traditional culinary use is entirely adequate. In supplement form, approximately 30 milligrams of extract per day. Plant 8. Chamomile, Matricaria chamomilla. Few things are more accessible than a cup of chamomile tea, and it deserves far more scientific respect than most people give it. Based on available data, chamomile appears useful in mitigating anxiety with a favorable risk-benefit profile compared to standard treatments. PubMed Central. The mechanism is well established. Apigenin, the main active flavonoid in chamomile, binds to the same GABA receptors in the brain as benzodiazepine medications, only in a much gentler, non-habit-forming way. This explains its calming effect. How to use? Tea from dried flowers, 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup of boiling water, steep 5 to 10 minutes. Safe for daily use. Rare allergic reactions in people sensitive to plants in the daisy family, ragweed, chrysanthemums. Plant 9. Rhodiola, Rhodiola rosea. This plant grows in harsh mountain environments, Siberia, Scandinavia, the Himalayas. It has developed remarkable mechanisms for surviving stress, which, as it turns out, are useful for humans too. Rhodiola belongs to the class of adaptogens, plants that help the body adapt to physical and psychological stress. Clinical trials have demonstrated its efficacy in mild to moderate depression. PubMed research has also documented meaningful reductions in professional burnout symptoms and improved cognitive function under mental fatigue. The evidence base for Rhodiola is less extensive than for St. John's wort or Ashwagandha, but the quality of available studies is reasonably good. How to use? Standardized extract containing 3% rosavins and 1% salidroside, 200 to 400 milligrams per day. Best taken in the morning or early afternoon, as it can have a mildly energizing effect. Not recommended for people with bipolar disorder. Plant 10. Ginkgo, Ginkgo biloba, a tree that survived the age of dinosaurs, and today one of the most extensively researched plants on Earth. A systematic review and meta-analysis found that ginkgo demonstrated significant efficacy for anxiety disorders as measured by the HAMA scale, though the number of available clinical trials remains limited. PubMed. Beyond its effects on anxiety, ginkgo meaningfully improves cerebral blood circulation, which is particularly relevant when stress has led to worsening memory and concentration. This is one reason it remains popular among older adults. How to use? Standardized leaf extract, 24% flavonoid glycosides, 6% terpene lactones, 120 to 240 milligrams per day. Important, ginkgo has blood-thinning properties. Do not combine with anticoagulant medications without consulting your doctor. An honest conversation, what not to expect. It would be dishonest to end this without some important caveats. None of these plants replace professional psychiatric or psychological care for clinical depression, severe anxiety disorders, or crisis situations. If you are experiencing thoughts of harming yourself or others, please reach out to a healthcare professional or crisis service immediately. Most studies examine short-term use of 8 to 12 weeks. Long-term data on most of these plants remains limited. Research quality varies considerably. Many trials were conducted with small sample sizes. This is why science says promising and likely effective rather than guaranteed to cure. That said, lavender, passionflower, lemon balm, and valerian have consistently been shown in clinical trials to relieve mild forms of anxiety and stress. This is not folklore. It is science. PubMed. Where to begin? Do not try to incorporate everything at once. Choose 1 or 2 plants that are accessible to you and suited to your situation. For anxiety and sleep difficulties, passionflower or valerian in the evening, lemon balm during the day. For chronic stress and elevated cortisol, ashwagandha, taken consistently for 8 to 12 weeks. For low mood, St. John's wort, only after consulting a physician given its drug interactions. For daily balance and calm, chamomile or lavender with no time restrictions. Consistency matters far more than quantity. A plant you drink as tea every day will do more for you than 10 bottles of supplements opened and forgotten on a shelf. Nature is genuinely generous, but it works patiently and gradually. Give it time and pay attention to what it offers. This text is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. If you're experiencing symptoms of depression or an anxiety disorder, please consult a physician or mental health professional.